got 6 seconds.
Not anymore.
Ah.
I'll go ahead and call the Tuesday, February 11th meeting to order. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces. That will be followed by an invocation by Reverend BINGHAM with the Westminster Presbyterian Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Joseph FLESCHER, Vice Chair. If everybody would please rise.
God in heaven, thank you for this new day with all its possibilities that you have given. Thank you for daily strength and health that helps us fulfill our calling and responsibilities. And thank you for your wisdom and guidance that is always available. Our prayer today is that you will grant us wisdom to work and govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times. That you will grant an abiding sense for the welfare and needs of the people we serve. That you will grant us grace to do our duty with justice and a commitment to that which is honorable and right. That you will grant us ability to work together in harmony, even when we disagree. That you will grant us grace and joy to fulfill our daily responsibilities, so that our beloved Indian River County may prosper and grow and be a blessing to all who live within its borders, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America, land of the free and because of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And then, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we'll move on to proclamations and presentations. Our first presentation is a proclamation designating February 2020 as 211 Awareness Month by Commissioner Zork.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to read the proclamation. If you'd like to share a few words afterwards, that would be great. This is a proclamation designating February 2020 as 211 Awareness Month. Whereas individuals and families frequently need help in meeting life's basic needs or addressing acute crises, but may not know where to turn for assistance. And whereas 211 is an easy-to-remember, easy-to-use number recognized as the key hub in linking individuals and families with the guidance and support they need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas 211 Helpline received over 3,800 requests for help last year via telephone, text, messaging, and online chat. And whereas 211 specialized advocacy and support programs includes Help Me Grow initiative, which seeks to catch children's development delays early, and 211's Life-Saving Sunshine daily phone calls that positively impact the lives of households and isolated seniors. And whereas 211's newest program, My Florida Veteran, offers peer-to-peer and readjustment support for both veterans and their families. And whereas 211 Helpline is a kind voice on the other end of the line, a team of highly trained professionals providing free and confidential crisis intervention, assessment, and community service referrals. They are in hope you will need it most. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that February 2020 is designated as 211 Awareness Month in Indian River County, and that the board urges all citizens to remember the only telephone number they need to find help with mental health counseling, substance abuse, health care, employment, food assistance, child care, support groups, volunteering, free income tax help, and much more. Adopted this 11th day of February 2020 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Colleen Phillips, and I'm the Community Relations Specialist for 211 Helpline. And on behalf of 211, we are so grateful to receive this proclamation in recognition of 211 Awareness Month. 211 is a free and confidential community helpline and crisis suicide prevention lifeline number available 24 hours a day to all residents in Palm Beach and the Treasure Coast. Aside from our community referral line, we also offer 4 advocacy programs. Help Me Grow provides free developmental and behavioral screenings for children aged 0 to 8 over the phone and connects them to resources and referrals where appropriate. The Sunshine Daily Telephone Program provides a quick and friendly hello to check on the well-being of senior citizens in this area who are over 60 or those who are individuals that are disabled or homebound. Our newest program, My Florida Vet, provides veterans peer-to-peer emotional support and information on VA-specific funded programs and services for our veterans and their families. Lastly, the Disaster Distress Helpline provides 24/7 crisis counseling and support to people experiencing emotional distress related to a natural or human-caused disaster. In 2019, 211 responded to over 3,800 calls, texts, emails, and over 15,000 chats through our website from Indian River County residents requesting help. We are also sad to report that we responded to over 90 calls from residents that are seeking to end their lives. Thank you for recognizing this vital Community Awareness Month and for helping us spread the information about our life-saving services. We are so grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just, Colleen, a quick question. Is there 211 chapters throughout Florida?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're actually, 211 is a national organization, so we have about 95% coverage across the United States. However, we're broken down by county within the state.
Right, okay.
So there's over 60 in the state of Florida alone, but we represent the local chapter. So we do have sister counties in Brevard, Miami-Dade, different ones.
Awesome, good, thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Come on up.
Yeah. Appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I'll take that. Thank you so much. That's worse.
Oh, the two-handed. You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation is a presentation of a proclamation honoring Eric J. Seymour. Commissioner FLESCHER will be presenting this to Mr. Seymour. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, sir, and welcome. And thank you, Madam Chair. I have the opportunity to present this proclamation honoring Eric J. Seymour during our African American Pioneers Month. Thank you. Whereas Indian River County celebrates African American pioneers who, through their service in the business, public, and elected arenas, have paved the way for this and future generations. And whereas Eric J. Seymour, a native son of Vero Beach and a graduate of Vero Beach High School and Delaware State University, is an accomplished scholar and athlete. And whereas Eric started his administrative career as assistant principal and adult education counselor at Vero Beach High School, progressing to assistant principal at Lincoln Park Academy and subsequent recognition as the state of Florida's 2003 Assistant Principal of the Year. And whereas, as a principal, Eric oversaw the conversion of Northport Middle to K-8 school and then led Vero Beach High School to its first ever Florida Department of Education A rating. And whereas Eric currently serves as the attendance specialist for the school district of Indian River County and director of Hear My Story, a motivational speaker program sharing the true life stories that inspire struggling students to grow and learn. And whereas Eric is a multi-year member of the Education Committee chaired by Congressman Bill Posey and tasked with the developing strategies to improve the student achievement and overall school performance. And whereas Erica serves as an executive director, board member of the St. Lucie County United Way and Chamber of Commerce, as well as a longtime member of the National Association of Secondary School Administrators, and where he has earned his keen reputation as a proactive problem solver. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the pioneer spirit and civic contributions of Eric J. Seymour have greatly enriched the Indian River County and the Treasure Coast, and that the board extends its sincere thanks to these outstanding efforts. Duly adopted the 11th day of February, 2020, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Madam Chairman and members of the board, I'd like to say thank you, Tim. Good morning. And, you know, have to go back and think about the people who provided that support. And the late Miss Martha Hudson, Dr. Eddie is here. She was one of my first mentors at Vero Beach High School. Then I had Jerry McPherson Smith at Lincoln Park Academy, who really supported me and showed me the way to go. But today, I gotta say too, thank you to the colleagues that appeared today. I have Ms. LaVon Walker here. I have Donna Hedgecock and also board member Terry Barenborg here. Thank you for coming. In addition to that, my Hear My Story group, I have members from that group, and we go around and we try and talk to kids who are struggling, and we see that they're performing well, and some may or may not, but we never know what they're thinking, and our goal is to try and provide that mental support when they struggle most. But when all of the things that you see on paper don't work right, there's one person that has supported me for the million things that did not, and that's my wife. And I gotta give her credit for, you know, giving me that opportunity to talk to her when those things don't. But again, board, I say thank you very much, and I'm very honored. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Nice to see this one. I like this pen. The pen. Yeah.
You have to come up and stand with it.
Yes. Well, you know.
Can I have my colleague, board member, and my HMS team up one more shot, please?
Don't be shy.
It's
Come
your
on.
day. Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
And you got a school board member
Oh,
here,
wait,
too.
hang on, Scott.
One more.
Wonderful. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, and our next presentation of proclamation will be honoring Joe IDLETTE III, and that will be presented by Commissioner Solari.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If Mr. IDLETTE III would come on up to the podium, and he's certainly more than welcome to bring any friends and family that he has with him, or stand there by himself if he wants to be lonely.
I'll stand by myself for now.
Okay.
I'll come up later.
Good morning, Mr. IDLETTE.
Good morning, sir.
I am very happy to read this proclamation honoring Joe N. IDLETTE III. Whereas Indian River County celebrates African American pioneers who, through their service in the business, public, and elected arenas, have paved the way for this and future generations. And whereas Joe IDLETTE III is a native son of Indian River County, loyal husband, father of 2 beautiful daughters, and grandfather of 2 wonderful grandchildren. And whereas Joe was one of the first African American students to integrate Vero Beach High School in 1968, and afterward matriculated at the great Florida State University in Tallahassee. And whereas Joe subsequently returned home and began a career with the city of Vero Beach, culminating in 2012 after 34 distinguished years of service as lead treatment plant operator. And whereas Joe's distinguished history of youth volunteerism in Indian River County covers multiple decades and continues to this day, comprising 25 years as youth football coach and 28 years as basketball coach with the Indian River County Recreation Department, 10 years with Gifford Little League Baseball as president, coach, umpire, and more, and major contributions to the Cub Scouts and the Gifford Youth Achievement Center's Boys to Men to Greatness mentoring program. And whereas Joe's efforts carry into community volunteerism, especially through our Father's Table Soup Kitchen and the Starlight Garden Ministry and the United Way's Day of Caring. And whereas Joe has served as a prominent civic leader, including as vice chairman of the Indian River County Housing Authority, vice chairman of the Economic Development Council, and president of the Progressive Civic League of Gifford since 2004. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that the pioneer spirit and civic contributions of Joe N. IDLETTE III have greatly enriched Indian River County and the Treasure Coast, and that the board extends its sincere thanks for his outstanding efforts. Adopted this 11th day of February 2020 and signed by all 5 members of the Board of County Commissioners. Joseph, thank you very much for your service to our community, and would be happy to hear a few words from you.
All right, thank you. Good morning. First, I need to do an acknowledgement. I have my parents, my mother and father are here, Bernice and Joe Jr., and I am one of 6 kids. I have my big brother, Norris, and my baby sister, Jody. They're in the audience. They're supporting me. First, I like to let you know that I'm a person who prefers that my efforts of volunteering to go unnoticed. I like to fly up under the radar. That's just my personality. So I'm just one of those type people. Now, I would like to thank the person or persons who recommended me for this proclamation. Also, I thank the commissioners, the county attorney, county administrator, and county staff. I thank the audience. I have some supporters here. I'd like to thank all the supporters for coming out and supporting me on this special day, which I'll never forget. There's a scripture that states, and I may not quote it right, "Let your light so shine that man may see your good works." I made a conscious decision a long time ago to try to follow those words, but sometimes I do fall short. My desire in prayer is that the people of Indian River County, the state, and the world in which we all live choose to let their light shine for the good and not for the bad. I believe in giving people their flowers while they can smell them, and I thank everyone for giving me my flowers so I can smell them this morning. Thank you.
Y'all come on down.
Come on down.
Come on.
Joe just said he wants you all down.
Yes.
Come on down.
Come on.
Come on, Judge.
We got to reward him. That's the longest speech I heard him say in 15 years. As short as it was the longest I've ever heard from Joe 3.
couple of you might get on the other side of Joe there.
My friend John Marr also.
There we go. Awesome. Good job.
There's a lot more crowd, but they didn't want to.
John, our commissioner, that's my church family back there supporting me. I don't know why they asked me to shout.
Maybe they can give you a couple of hallelujahs here or something.
Don't bother me, you know.
Congratulations, Joe. All right. There's no minutes for approval or informational items, so we'll move on to consent agenda. Gentlemen, is anybody who'd like to pull anything from consent?
Madam Chair, 8E.
8E.
Here's an echo.
All right. Does anybody from the public wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? No?
Madam Chair, move approval as amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flescher, second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Zorg, item
Yes.
8E.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in support of item 8E, but just to explain to the public, for those that have been to our meetings in the past, wanted to know kind of the signalization review process. This is just one step of many. We're still completing the needs study and the traffic count and crash count at the intersection. This is one step, but we still have a number more to go. And I'd like to ask Mr. Spirka from Public Works, do we know when the next study portion might be completed?
Rich Berga, Public Works Director. Commissioner, we completed a warrant analysis, okay? At this time, the signal's not warranted, but it's close. So we want to be prepared that when we do our study next year, if it's warranted, we can move forward. It takes about 6 months for design, but it takes, right now, it's looking like 9 to 12 months when we order mast arms. So we're trying to get ahead of the ballgame so that if the warrant comes up that a signal is warranted here, we can order the mast arms before we bid in order to have the mast arms on site when the bid is awarded. So we're getting ahead of the game on this particular one, and that's what we want to try to do going forward if we can.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll move staff recommendation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Zork with a second by Commissioner Flescher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And our next item is going to be a public hearing. This item is a request from CEMEX Construction Materials Florida, LLC, to rezone 3 properties. Subject property 1, which is plus or minus 6.13 acres, located north of 53rd Street and west of the Florida East Coast Railway, and the existing CEMEX cement facility at 3150 53rd Street, Vero Beach, Florida, 32967. From A1 Agricultural District up to 1 unit per 5 acres to IG General Industrial District. Subject property 2, plus or minus 15.85 acres, located west of and adjacent to property 1. From A1 Agricultural District up to 1 unit per 5 acres to CH Heavy Commercial District. And subject property 3, plus or minus 4.78 acres, located west of and adjacent to subject property 2. From IG General Industrial District to CG General Commercial District. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. The parties to the proceeding are Indian River County and CEMEX Construction Materials Florida, LLC, which is the applicant. At this time, I'm going to ask the commissioners to disclose any ex parte communications, site visits, or independent investigations. Commissioner Zork?
Yes, I drive that area frequently. I've known the plants there, but I've not spoken with anybody about the application or any of the future plans for the property.
Okay.
Madam Chair, none that I'm aware of, but I do pass that site each and every day as I travel here to work.
I as well. It is on my way in. But other than that, nothing.
No, ex parte
Okay.
communications.
And aside from passing the site, nothing.
All right. Next, we'd like to confirm that commissioners have an open mind and are able to base your decisions on the evidence presented and applicable law. Commissioner Zork?
Can and will.
I can and will.
I can and will.
Can and will.
And will.
All right. And with that, we will turn it over to Mr. Phil.
Okay, good morning, Phil Mattson, Community Development Director, and as a man of few words, notoriously, I'll turn it over to Dylan and Bill Shute, who will discuss the quasi-judicial procedures and make the presentation.
You want to go ahead and do it now? All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. And anybody that's going to be speaking, will you please rise so you can be sworn in by the clerk? Anybody that's going to be speaking at all on this issue?
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Bill Shute, Chief of Long Range Planning for Indian River County. And let me switch this over to staff, PC, make sure that gets up there. Okay. And the request before you today, as you stated, is a CMEX Construction Materials LLC rezoning request for really three properties, A1 to IG, A1 to CH, and IG to CG. So on the overhead slide, we have an air photo that shows the general location of the subject property. It's west of 3150 53rd Street, which is their existing CMEX plant facility. North side of 53rd Street, and you see Old Dixie off to the east side, as well as the FEC Railway. To the north, we have Hawks Necks Golf Course, which is across the North Relief Canal. To the west, we have some wooded area that's part of the overall development for the DRI. Waterway Village, and to the south, we have some similar uses, Titan construction materials as well to the south. And on both sites, you see the lakes. There are remnants of an old sand mine operation that was on the site. And I suppose, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but on the side, we also have the acreage. So you can see on the far east side, the property is plus or minus 6.13 acres, and that's for A1, Agriculture 1 to IG, General Industrial. The center property is proposed for A1 to CH, and that's plus or minus 15.85 acres. And the westernmost property, property 3, is plus or minus 4.78 acres, and it's for industrial general to commercial general. So the purpose is to secure the zoning necessary to develop the sites with uses that are allowed under the IG for property 1, CH for property 2, and CG property 3 zoning districts. Uses under any of the commercial or industrial zoning districts are subject to other corridor special development regulations when they do develop. With respect to A1 zoning, that's traditionally been viewed as a holding zone. We don't necessarily go out and proactively rezone agriculturally zoned properties that are still in the urban service area. We wait for something to trigger that. In this case, we have an applicant that's requesting the rezoning. IG zoning. The IG district allows uses such as mulch products, services, kennels, animal boarding, landscaping services, veterinary services, contractors, general automotive repair, welding, manufacturing, storage, transportation services. It's a whole list of uses. These are just some highlights from the use list in our zoning code. CH zoning as well. Here you have a whole list of uses, including the kennels, animal boarding, pet grooming, credit reporting, collections, sales, repair services, health, fitness, the whole list. CG zoning as well, you have a very long list, and this is also included as part of the staff report. You have banks and credit unions, office uses, health and fitness centers, and a few, just to highlight and name a few. With respect to other corridor special development regulations, those regulations cover things that are aesthetic in nature, dealing with buildings, your landscaping, your signs, your site lighting, and those regulations also deal with pedestrian connections. With respect to the future land use map for the subject properties and the surrounding area, you have an overall portion of the map shown on the slide above. All 3 properties are planned for commercial industrial on the future land use map. To the north, we have L2, to the north and to the west, we have L2, which is more of a residential designation. And to the south, you have commercial industrial, as well as to the east, you have commercial industrial. With respect to zoning, we have a concentration of some industrial zoning and commercial zoning along the FECC railroad tracks there, including the subject site, which is, let me clarify that. The subject property that is the existing CMEX plant facility, which is IG, general industrial zoning. Then you have the A1 properties that are up for rezoning, and you also have the IG zoning that's all the way to the west, that abuts Letter H Canal and the existing developing subdivision, Waterway Village. You have RM4 residential multifamily, 4 units per acre to the north. That's where the Hawks Nest Golf Course is. And you still have some A1 zoning for some of the old sand mine operation and Titan facility to the south. So the proposed zoning map, you can see the proposed change for IG to be right next to their existing CMEX facility. And kind of a step-down approach, you have CH, heavy commercial, and CG, general commercial, going to the border there to the west. This is just another view of the properties. This is just taking their site survey to get a better idea. On their site survey, they also label property 1 as parcel A2, property 2 as parcel B1, and property 3 as parcel B2. But you can see to the west, you have the lateral H canal. It's labeled as 160 feet of right-of-way for the width of that canal. To the north, we have the North Leaf Canal that's labeled as 250 feet of right-of-way. In the south, you can see 53rd Street, which is an 150-foot of right-of-way. And off to the east, we have Florida East Coast Railway in a 100-foot right-of-way. So at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on December 12th, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended the board approve the request, a 6-0 vote. And the Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended that the applicant meet with the Hawks Nest Golf Course, which is owned by the Moorings Club representatives, and discuss proposed plans, potential impacts. At that meeting, they had voiced some concerns about what was going to happen on the property and how it might impact their golf course to the north. So they did a follow-up meeting on January 9th. CMEX and Hawks Nest met, golf course representatives met, and we received an email summary that we attached to the staff report. And in that summary from the CMEX attorney, there was notations about concerns about noise and visible structures, concerns about what CMEX plans on doing on the properties. There was discussion about the approved environmental resource permit from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. That permit authorizes a portion of the sand mine pit to be filled, and that's really the southern portion, southern half. And then there was also discussion about maintaining vegetation on the north side of the sand mining pit for a buffer for the Hawks Nest Golf Course. There was also a letter that was received, we included as a backup, from the attorney representing the Hawks Nest Golf Course, Kevin Berry. And in that letter, they basically asked for some restrictions on some of the uses for the CMEX site, and also to consider selling subject property 3 to the Moorings Club. So that was, again, a meeting that between the two parties. The staff was not involved. And in terms of restricting uses, the county cannot conditionally rezone a property. However, the property owners may choose to, on their own, place restrictions on the properties. County staff's original recommendation remains unchanged. With rezoning requests, there are set criteria that are analyzed. We look at concurrency, consistency with the comprehensive plan, consistency with the county land development regulations. We look at environmental impact, and we look at compatibility with surrounding uses. With respect to concurrency, we check for capacity in certain facilities. We look at the transportation. We look at water, wastewater, solid waste, stormwater management. And all can be met with this rezoning request, but a more detailed concurrency review will be done at the time of project development. Looking at the intensity of uses that for concurrency purposes, we look at agricultural, 4 single-family units. General industrial, we look at 95,600 square foot of general industrial. The most intense use with the proposed zoning under IG general industrial would be 122,600 square foot of general industrial. Heavy commercial would be 317,000 square foot of general industrial. As So we have a subtotal of 439,600 feet of general industrial. In general commercial, we look at 47,800 square feet. So these are our maximums per our code that we need to calculate for concurrency. Consistency with the comprehensive plan, we look at various policies throughout the plan, and particular ones to note are future land use policies 1.17, 1.18, and 1.43. And those are just focusing on things like being within the urban service area for commercial industrial development, consistent with allowed CI land use designation, and for the subject properties, IG, CH, and CG are appropriate given the locational criteria of future land use element policy 1.43. And here we have a slide that are various policies of that we have to look at in 1.43. With respect to subject property number 1, general industrial zoning district, it meets all 4 criteria along arterial roads and major intersections, along railroad tracks near industrial areas, separated from residential developments by major roadway or intervening property, and separated from retail office uses. Subject property 2, which is the center property, proposed commercial heavy zoning district. Again, it meets all the criteria. That this is a little different set, but in some respects similar. It's along arterial roads, along railroad tracks, between general commercial industrial areas, separated from residential development. Subject property number 3, commercial general, so the westernmost property. Again, there's 4 criteria, and again, it meets those 4 criteria along arterial roads and major intersections. It's separated from residential development. We have the lateral H canal that serves as separation. Separated from industrial areas because of the CH heavy commercial zoning that's planned in the center, and near retail and office uses, which are all located along Old Dixie, US 1, and developing 53rd Street. Consistency with county land development regulations. The rezoning request is consistent with all applicable sections of the county land development regulations, including the section 902.12.3 standards review. Those are attached to the staff report. With respect to environmental impacts, impact is the same for the current proposed zoning. Subject property 1 is a partially developed and a disturbed site currently being partially used by the CMEX facility. Subject property 2 contains the lake and associated vegetation related to the old Jenkins sand mining operation. And subject property 3 is a vegetated site. With any project, native trees are subject to county tree protection requirements. With respect to the environmental resource permit that's approved by the Florida DEP, those are our approved plans on file in the County Community Development Department, and as mentioned, they fill in a large portion of the existing lake. With the rezoning request, there's no adverse environmental impacts. And just to give you an idea, here is a copy of the plan. One of the plans is a very thick document when you deal with environmental review. Just shows the area to be filled with plus or minus 12.44 acres to the south and retaining surface water of 21.37 acres to the north. Looking at compatibility of uses, north we have RM4 adjacent to the North Relief Canal, as mentioned. Really you have 250 feet of right-of-way. You have existing golf course. Buffer yard requirements would come into play with any adjacent zoning districts between residential and commercial industrial. Existing IG adjacent to existing CMEX facilities, so there's no incompatibilities there. South we have the A1 and IG. It's adjacent to 53rd Street, which has 150 to 250 feet of right-of-way. You have the existing Titan Materials facility. And as mentioned earlier, we have other corridor landscape and aesthetic requirements that would come into play through site design. No incompatibilities. To the west, we have PD plan development. It's just adjacent to lateral H canal, 135 to 140 foot of right-of-way. Significant conservation buffer and buffer yard exists to the west, and we can show that in the next slide, but there's no incompatibilities. So talking about those buffer and conservation areas, so you have the lateral H canal to the west, and the green areas are conservation areas that are part of Waterway Village. Hitting the down, there we go. And to the north, as mentioned, you have a 250-foot wide North Relief Canal right-of-way. And just to give you some quick measurements, now again, these lot lines are not perfectly placed on top of air photos, but roughly 40 feet at the closest point to the right-of-way. that's when the lake starts, and then there's another point you can see at 182 feet. With respect to buffers, I don't want to go through all, there's 6 slides here, but we have type A, type B, and type C buffers, and basically just increasing distances and planting requirements. And type A is the more intense, so it's usually industrial to residential, and type C is the least intense. That's dealing with your CG area to residential. But here's the slides, 30 feet there, and then 20 to 15 feet for type C buffer, and then you have the quick graphics here. Lots of different trees and shrubs and berms, vertical features. In conclusion, requested IG, CH, and CG are compatible with surrounding uses, consistent with the comprehensive plan, meets the concurrency test, meets the criteria to be rezoned. There's no additional environmental impacts with the rezoning, and staff supports the request. With that, the staff and Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the rezoning request from A1 to IG, subject property 1, from A1 to CH for subject property 2, and from IG to CG for subject property 3, by adopting the ordinance attached to the agenda item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen, are there any questions? Yes.
Bill, can you go back to the plan that shows the filling of the lake? There, okay. 2 things. So one in the backup, there was talk about a island there that's a bird rookery. That's outside of the fill area, is that correct?
Yes, that's, let me see if I can show it there. There we go. It's in this area where the arrow is.
Okay. Then I take it that the remaining volume and surface area of the remaining lake there, will that be sufficient to serve as a stormwater retention for anything that's developed on the properties?
I want to say yes, because I know the depth of that lake is quite deep, and then you also have, proportionally, when you deal with the stormwater, it's usually maybe 25–30% of a site, roughly. So when we look at this, it's near half.
Okay, just, and then the other thing is, don't we have a cut and fill policy, and where if someone is filling in, stormwater retainage, they have to provide that somewhere else? Does that apply here to this, or how are we looking at that?
Yeah.
Some of this, Phil Mattson, Community Development, some of this will be revisited depending on what they're proposing and what they actually build in more detail in the development review process. So I'd have to say it wouldn't apply here. This permit's already been approved in DEP.
Okay, but so does that trump our cut and fill policy that we have?
I think they could probably fill this in at this point. I'll double check with Roland DeBlois.
And before they actually do it, they will have to comply with those requirements.
Yep.
The cut and fill balance.
I just know we've had other property owners that wanted to fill much smaller bodies of water, and the whole cut and fill thing became a very big issue, and so it just seems we need to make sure we're treating everybody the same here, or either we have that policy or we don't, but I think it should apply fairly to everyone.
Will do.
And then just, I guess when they come back in with more development plans, they will look at the stormwater retention at that point.
Absolutely. Attachments 4, 5, and 6 talk about what they could potentially do. When you look at these, it could be permissible as a special exception use with conditions, as an administrative use, and all of those details will have to be complied with.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll check that with Public Works.
Okay. Other questions?
Just, Madam Chair, just a
Yes.
comment. Phil, we do get comments, I know I got a multitude of comments about the existing water collection sites that have, I guess, we have a littoral zone requirement, and the broken cement or recovered cement is used to create a bank for the littoral zone, and it's done so in rather large chunks that are absolutely distracting, and they almost look like just debris lines. And do we have any requirements on that, on pond sites or collection areas that would be more suitable?
Yeah, again, I'll check with our environmental planning section. I'm certain that you're not allowed to have debris chunks lying around that could be an obstruction, that could be a contaminant or pollutant. I don't know the specific ones, but we'll check. If you're talking about debris that follows from the cement manufacturing process.
Right, and
Yeah.
used as an embankment. And
I'm sure there's state requirements too, and I'm sure they have to apply with all of it. I will, again, get back to us if we have follow-up questions, and that'll all come out in the development review process.
it's more or less a public appearance concern.
Yeah, we fielded a lot of questions from the bicyclists now on things that come in and fill the bike lanes. These things tend to get swept toward the outside of 53rd Street. A lot of, sand and cement debris. And I think Public Works does a great job, Road and Bridge, on cleaning up the debris that comes down when we get a complaint.
We have the best.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, any other questions of staff? No? All right, thank you. At this time, then, we'll have a presentation by the applicant. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Bruce Barquette, representing CEMEX, and I don't really have a presentation. I think staff did an excellent job on its report. We've worked with them for over a year on this application, and just here to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, are there any questions for the applicant?
Just, Bruce, reading in the backup in the emails, the Hawksness was asking for a couple things I think that y'all were addressing. One was a windsock or something, so the replacing the windsock that had been.
We had a very productive meeting with Hawksness. They were concerned that that the CEMEX was planning on expanding the operation of the plant, which is not the case.
Okay.
And they did not realize that only the southern half of that, you keep calling it a lake, it's not a lake, it's a sand pit. Only the southern half of that sand pit could be filled. I think once we explained those two things, we alleviated many of their concerns. And then they had some other requests, like you said, replacing there was an American flag up there that just got weather beaten, so it got taken down. So CEMEX has agreed to replace the flag. And there's some necessary noise that occurs in an operation like this for loadouts. And apparently Hawks Nest felt like, or Moorings felt like some of those noises had gotten louder, so CEMEX is going to look to reducing some of those. Now, the noises can't be eliminated. They're OSHA requirements.
Right, yeah.
But whatever they can do, they're going to look at. There were some uses that Hawks Nest were kind of concerned about, and we've agreed not to put those uses on. But CEMEX, just to let you know, is not planning on developing the site other than continue its operation for the first property number 1, as they call. Properties 2 and 3 where the lake are, those aren't up for development or anything like that. That's just to continue the operation of the plant. Does that answer your question?
Well, so if they're not, you're saying they are or are not going to expand the plant on property 2 and 3?
They're not expanding the plant. No, they're just continuing to fill the lake with what they're doing. The same operation, but the filling of the lake is ongoing. They understand? So they've got their.
Because here's, I guess I'm looking at it as, if you do the rezoning, your taxes are going to go up because you've got a higher value on it now. But if you're not going to expand or use it, why not keep it ag instead of paying higher taxes?
They're going to use it by continuing to fill. What happened is their original site plan and their ERP permit from the department allowed them to fill to the southern half of that lake. But the original site plan only showed phase 1 as filling out so far to the west. They're now into wanting to go to phase 2, which requires rezoning. It doesn't change the operation at all, except they're going to continue to fill to the west.
Okay, and the fill is just the byproduct from their cement process?
Yeah, I thought Jeff Porter is here and can explain more of that, but yes, that's correct. And then but I guess the other thing to point out is the property furthest to the west, property number 3, which is now zoned industrial, your staff actually came to us and said, look, as long as you're going to rezone this first part, let's get rid of that industrial zoning and switch it over because it doesn't belong there.
Okay.
So, and that's fine with us.
Thank you, Bruce.
Other questions for the applicant? No? All right. Then at this time, if there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, are there any final presentations by county staff? No? Any final presentations by the applicant? Nope, okay. Has all the documents and tangible evidence been given to the clerk? Yes. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments, questions, concerns, or motion?
Madam Chair, move approval.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Flescher, excuse me, with a second by Commissioner Zork. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right. And then we will move on to county attorney matters, Beach and Shore Preservation Advisory Committee appointment.
Thank you very much. We have a vacancy on the Beach and Shore Preservation Advisory Committee. We have received a couple applications for this vacant position. Simply recommend that the board consider the applications that have been presented. They're from Philip Glade, David Morgan, David Cox, Sven Frizzle, Curtis Carpenter, and Kelly Darmetko. Simply recommend the board consider the applications that have been presented and decide whether to fill the vacant position. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Madam Chair,
I'd be happy to nominate David Morgan for the position.
And that was my motion, so I will
So are you seconding it?
second
Okay.
Commissioner Solaris.
We have a nomination for Mr. Morgan. Any other? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Welcome, Mr. Morgan. Next item is going to be the acquisition of right-of-way for Phase 2 of 66th Avenue improvements. Mr. DeBraw, welcome. Happy Tuesday.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday to you as well. Bill DeBrawl on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. Today we have a parcel of property, or two parcels of property for consideration, owned by the Benak Family Limited Trust. If you take a look at your screens, you'll be able to see them there. You can see that they're located at the southeast corner of 66th Avenue and 61st Street. The 39-acre parcel that is highlighted is one of the affected parcels. The one directly to the east is 19 acres. That is also affected as far as the right-of-way take. These two parcels to the north are also owned by the Benaks. So this entire parcel here from 61st to 65th consists of about 87 acres. We need two parcels of property. One parcel, 301, will be here along 61st Street. That'll be 50 feet wide. The second parcel is at the other 19-acre site. Again, that will be a 50-foot wide take that is there. It turns out to be 2.05 acres in size. There are improvements along those two parcels that include a fence. The other thing that the county needs is a easement along the, if I could get this one straight so we don't have to tilt our heads in odd positions. We also need an access easement so Mr. Gunter and the farms can access the canal that runs parallel to 66th Avenue. You can see this 200 or 2,500 square foot access easement that will allow Mr. Gunter to get to his canal and perform maintenance along the canal right away. You can also see here the 10-foot temporary construction easement that will need to catch grade along the entire length of the 1,277-foot parcel of right-of-way there along 301. As far as the other improvements in there, 61st Street is historically known as Pecan Grove Road, and there are some 24 pecan trees, mature pecan trees, that will be in the area of take, and unfortunately they will all have to be removed. As far as the parcels, they were evaluated for by our appraiser, Armfield and Wagner, at $46,660. If you put in the $4,500 for the gate, the fencing, and improvements there, you're getting about to $52,000. We compared these in a pre-suit mediation with Mr. Brennan as our mediator and the Banacs with their attorney. We ultimately settled on a price for the right-of-way for $110,000. That's similar to what we paid for the right-of-way across the street with the Central Groves property. The statutory attorney's fees in this matter works out to be $20,955. There were only $2,500 in expert witness fees on the other side, and we agreed to install two 24-foot wide driveways with a 35-foot radii at locations to be determined by the Banacs. I think pursuant to the settlement agreement that's attached, they will have a total of 6 months to be able to advise where they want these located. You can see the breakdown as far as the valuations for other parcels that we had. I would point out one thing, that in the county's appraisals, the appraisals were silent as to the value of the 24 trees, so that was kind of the sticking point as far as the negotiations, which we settled on. I know if you look at the site now, the trees don't look like much because they're pecan trees, they're deciduous, they're in their winter dormant state. They're always late to come out, so you won't see them to come out for another month and a half, 2 months, somewhere in there. But they range from health from poor to medium health, fair health. Staff's recommendation is to go ahead and approve the expenditure and pre-suit mediation settlement agreement for the Banac property and authorize the chair to execute the document on behalf of the board. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. DeBrawl?
Bill, do they currently harvest the pecans there? Is there any cash crop, or there's just pecan trees are there and somehow they're worth $100,000?
Well, no, we didn't assign a $100,000 value to the tree. I think we assigned a $42,500 value per acre to the parcel taken. That gets you to $85,000. Then when you add the $4,500 to the fence, you're close to $90,000 there, and $20,000 for if you value it at $1,000 a tree. Now you're getting much closer to the $110,000 parcel price that we attached to the parcel. But to answer your question, I don't think they actively harvest them, and it's a cash crop, no.
And just for the board's notification, the backup, the grows at 66th Avenue and 69th Street was $35,250 an acre. The central grows was $42,500 an acre. Now, granted, those are larger parcels, but we've crept up to $66,000 an acre for the same type of land. So just, again, I just think there's a lot of price creep going on here. But thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other questions or comments for staff? Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? All right. Seeing none. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
Move staff recommendation.
I have a motion, and I will be happy to second that. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner O'Brien
Sometimes you
dissenting.
need the band director.
I know, I thought we all forgot what we were doing. We need more coffee.
You're
More
moving us,
coffee.
Commissioner.
All
You're moving
right. The needle twitched there for a
Yes,
second.
it did.
Thank you.
You know, if I
Thank
would
you.
have known you were moving, I would have gotten into a bigger diatribe.
You have to type it up, though. All right, we will move on to Commissioners' Open Dialogue. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Solari this time, since we started with Commissioners last.
I'm so glad that, this is a short meeting and we're able to fill the time with something. And
3-minute time limit, right, Madam Chair?
whether it's something useful or
binder.
not, I'm not so sure. But all of us here know that right now Commissioner O'Brien is busy preparing for March Madness, and he's trying to decipher the chances of his favorite teams making it to the Final Four. I'm trying to find out who is responsible for some of the most idiotic changes that have been foisted on an unsuspecting American public over the last decades. One that really gnaws on me is the attempt to change BC and AD to BCE and CE. We all know that BC and AD mean before Christ and in the year of our Lord, referring to an historical figure born in Bethlehem during the reign of Herod. But what does BCE and CE mean? Sure, we understand the letters stand for before Common Era and Common Era, but what do they mean? Whose Common Era? I've looked, I've tried to find out, I've even tried Wikipedia. So I'm not against some of this new stuff. Turns out it's nobody's Common Era. The terms are meaningless. They simply are a brain-dead attempt to hide the fact that for historical reasons, good and bad, years are counted backwards and forwards from the time of Christ. In February, where we are now, we have another one of these brain-dead changes. It's called President's Day. When I was a kid, we celebrated Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday, honoring America's two greatest presidents. Now, this February 17th, we will what? Celebrate the presidency of Andrew Johnson? Perhaps Warren Harding? No. And I know that half the country is not going to be out there celebrating Trump's presidency. Some will take the day off, and most will ignore our presidents altogether. And that is a shame because with both Washington and Lincoln, we really have two great men we could and should celebrate and learn from. Today, I'm going to focus on Washington. Since the Revolutionary period, he's been considered to be a great man, the father of our country. But why? I've long wondered about the essence of his greatness. He was a man of great courage. This was attested to many times. In the French and Indian War, fighting under General Braddock, he had 2 horses shot from under him and 4 bullets went through his coat, but he remained composed and helped minimize the damage done to the British forces during the retreat from the French. More amazing was his performance at the Battle of Monmouth Courthouse. General Lee requested and was given the command of the colonial forces and led 4,000 troops against the British General Cornwallis. Lee fared poorly and was soon leading a disorderly retreat. Washington questioned Lee in mid-flight, and as Lee continued to flee, Washington restored order, pulled Lee's troops into fighting order, and stopped the British. This was perhaps the greatest example of courage and leadership combined of the Revolutionary War. But as great as the courage shown by Washington was, I believe his real greatness lay elsewhere, and the right place to find it may begin with the words of George III of England. When told that Washington was going to resign after finally defeating the British, King George responded, "If he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world." King George knew that almost no other man anywhere would, at the height of his power, simply relinquish that power and walk away. And Washington did. He simply walked away, and not once but twice. Washington, who, when a private citizen, aggressively pursued his self-interest, was able to do what few others have done. Washington, when serving in a public capacity, was able to set aside his self-interest to devote his talents to the common good. And having so well served the common good, he twice turned down the power and rewards that could have been his for the asking. Where political corruption is perhaps best defined as the pursuit by citizens and rulers of private gain at public expense, and conversely, virtue is defined as the voluntary subordination of self-interest to the public good, George Washington was the virtuous American. Washington's life, work, and accomplishments are worth remembering, and I, for one, will simply ignore President's Day, but on Washington's birthday, February 17th, will take time out of my day to remember what George Washington did to start the process, which allowed me to be born in a great and free country. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very inspiring. It was. Now I'm going to have to make sure I think about our forefathers on President's Day. Set the bar high there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and all I have is the fact that Commissioner Solari now knows what March Madness is and that there's brackets and the sport involved, I consider that a success.
That's
So
a win.
I'm good.
We'll
I'm
take
done.
what we can get.
I will remind you, I actually went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Yes.
Spent a couple of years ago, and so I was aware of March Madness, but it was a great time. And during March Madness, when Chapel Hill was playing, which it almost always did back then, it was a great time to go to the library. There was absolutely no competition there whatsoever. So I looked forward to that time of year. You know, you could get your work done in a quiet setting, you know, without people, you know, bothering you as you're going through the shelves. So again, I'm a great fan of March Madness for that reason.
So very good, for whatever reason.
Commissioner Flescher.
I'm just, how can I follow that?
I don't know.
But
but
I
you
want
have
to try. It's a less exciting topic there. Several months ago, then Chairman Solari appointed me to the Medical Examiners Review Committee. And I'm pleased to report that we have now culminated the fruits of our endeavors over the year, and we have selected a medical examiner. I know that you're all excited about that because we do need a medical examiner. I hope that none of you are considering using their services just yet, but we have somebody that is very robust, knowledgeable, and I believe the best suited candidate for this county and the other two counties that the medical examiner serves. And within the next few months, there'll be a notification. There's a whole confirmation process that goes through to the governor and through various sources. But I'm very excited that that assignment and task has been fulfilled and completed. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Commissioner
I knew
Ford.
you wanted to know as soon as it was done.
I have to get out my binder here to compete. Just a few highlights of things that
What's the way, though?
participated in the community representing either the commission office or just points of interest on my own endeavors. Some of us attended last night the student chef competition with Indian River State College. It was a great event. There's some very great up-and-coming and inspiring future chefs that we'll see at some of our local restaurants, I think, in the near future. Also attended the St. Francis Manor Full Moon Jazz Concert. Been to St. Francis Manor many a times during the day and never thought there would be much exciting going on there at night, but they had a packed house with probably 300 to 400 people around the lakeside, and the Indian River Charter High School did a great job with the band jazz performance that they did. Please mark your calendars for the March 4th FIT Bethel Creek Flushing program that'll be held here in the Commission chambers on March 4th, 9 to 12, with representatives from FIT, the Indian River Lagoon Council, and Harbor Branch. And last but not least, since we have our Public Works Director in the background, now that there's some activity being visible at the 43rd Avenue and 60 with the delivery of the Jersey barriers, they would like to know, one, when they can have that kind of community outreach to those businesses, how they might be affected, future lane closures. And I know that's all a ways down the road, and maybe even a colored rendering of what the finished intersection might look like when it's completed. But I'll pass it on to you if we can get something in the schedule and let those businesses in that intersection know that they can attend a brief informational meeting on when's it going to start, when's it anticipated to be finished, and how great it'll look when it's all done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. I just have a few items.
Still going with Bob on that.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Right.
Bob's is very informational. Mine
Right.
will not be that informational. The Census Committee has been working hard on getting the word out for the census, so just as a reminder and an ask, I would encourage my fellow commissioners to talk up the census as much as y'all can when you're out and about in the community. The Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program had a meeting last Friday where we ranked all of the, approved all the grant applications and the rankings. Indian River County did receive a grant for a septic to sewer project, so I know Vinny's very excited about that. And then lastly, I just want to thank everybody at the shooting range. Last Thursday was their first Thursday night shoot. They were open from 5 to 9 on the clay and trap courses. The skeet and trap courses. So we went out, we had a good time. I hit a few, not as many as I would like, but it's all good. It was dark, no. It was actually really nice. You could see the, I had no excuse, you could see the clays a lot better at night.
I know.
But nonetheless, it's nice to see that open, and I know a lot of people in the community are excited about that. So thank you to them for getting that done. And with that, we'll move on to the Solid Waste Disposal District.
Move approval of minutes of November 5 and November 12.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Solari. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the next item is final pay to Geosyntec for work authorization, CCNA 2000.
Madam Chair, move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Flescher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we stand adjourned.